Hey guys, exclamation point, first time supporter and Patreon user in general. Also, my first question, exclamation point. Just wanted to know why VRR and ALLM is locked to the HDMI 2.1 certification on the PS5. Extremely frustrating that I have a £400 plus G-Sync and FreeSync Premium Pro certified monitor that works perfectly with my Series S for VRR and ALM. Yet when using the PS5, the frustration I receive when I'm being told by Sony that it's locked to HDMI 2.1 class of screens only, even though my monitor specifically has it built in. I've tested other monitors and they also don't work, but work flawlessly on the Series S. It's gotten to the point now where if there's a game that has an unstable frame rate on both PS5 version and Series S version, I'm more inclined to purchase the Series S version of the game, since that console allows me to utilize VRR and ALLM for a smooth experience, despite it being the weaker console of the two. People can say what they like about the Series S, but at least it allows me to utilize the features my monitor has. Keep up the good work, exclamation point. So, John, this is historically a thing with Sony whereby features are typically reserved for standardized television specifications, right?
Yeah, they largely tend to ignore sort of like the consumer TV standards, right? They follow that specifically. The one exception, I guess, would be 1440p when they finally added that, which I honestly did not expect, because that is one of the rare times they acknowledge that, hey, there's things called PC monitors. They exist. And I really think it's just them being stubborn with this sort of like their approach to HDMI standards and whatnot. Microsoft has been really good about this. I mean, even Xbox One supports VRR, I believe. Xbox One S.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like, it's technically possible there. And Microsoft being a PC focused company, they've always been good about sort of providing different options to users. I mean, when I first got my 360, I got the VGA cable for it, which was awesome. Yeah, cool. It supported all manner of resolutions, like just all kinds of weird stuff. And a lot of times the games would run at those resolutions too. And you could get 5:4 aspect ratio at 1280 by 1024 if you wanted. And you'd have games that would kind of do that. It was crazy times.
Pretty great. Yeah. I mean, Microsoft does have a rich and storied history of supporting a whole range of different displays. And Xbox 360 was kind of remarkable in that it launched with a VGA cable, which was great for me because, I had a plasma 1024 by 768 with anamorphic pixels, and the 360 supported that. It actually adapted it. You didn't need to do any crazy stuff there. PS3 just stuck to HDMI standards, which wasn't good for me because my plasma didn't have an HDMI port.
What was worse about PS3, if you remember when it launched, is like it would only support so like if a game was 720p, it was not necessarily the case that it would support 1080i output, and there were still a lot of HD TVs that only supported 480p or 1080i but not 720p.
That's right.
And PS3 couldn't support 1080i in a lot of games, most games, so you'd have to play it at 480p instead. Xbox 360 introduced that whole scaler system. PS3 didn't have anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It had a broken scaler that only worked horizontally.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty garbage.
Remarkable. Yeah.
Which is why sometimes if you had 1080 modes, you'd have to like have a different target res for PS3 versus 720p. So 360 was way ahead there, and it continues to this day with support for all these different sorts of video standards. And
I'm kind of seeing where's Ush's point of view here, because to have HDMI 2.1 typically means you'd need a 4K screen, which means that you're limited in options when it comes to monitors. And, the most popular monitors, gaming monitors these days, I think are pretty much, 1440p, 144, 165 hertz. And you're kind of like reliant on the monitor to actually have proper HDMI 2.1 certification in order for it to work on PS5. Whereas, as Wes Oosh points out, just happy days, just works on Xbox.
I would like to know what monitor he has, though, because when I think about it more, I'm like, if a monitor can accept all that over HDMI, wouldn't it already be kind of in HDMI 2.1 space? Like, because there's a lot of cases where you have PC monitors that support all high res and high refresh rates, but they've supported over DisplayPort. and then maybe their HDMI port goes down to a lower mode, right? That was very common for a while because HDMI couldn't support those features. Now that they do, I'm surprised that you have a monitor that supports that over HDMI that also doesn't support that for PS5. So you should contact us separately. I'd really like to see what monitor that is and understand the situation better, because it is unusual.
And what the other ones that you tried were as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like where is this coming from? Because that sounds very annoying indeed. And I would actually agree with them if there's a case where it's like Elden Ring is the go-to example for me, where I'd much rather play it on Xbox than PS5 because of VRR, even though the frame rate can be lower. And if I was Series S versus PS5, I'd probably still pick Series S over PS5 just because of the fluidity from VRR. Please don't get mad at me, guys. That's just my pickiness on frame consistency.
In the editorial meeting this week, Oliver pitched an idea of actually comparing Series S and against Series X and PS5, judged solely by whether you've got a 1080p monitor. You know, how much is the gap reduced if you've got a 1080p monitor? Because there sure is a lot of 1080p monitors out there, that's for sure, and 1080p TVs even. So yeah, interesting.